2018. MnDOT is picking up most of the expenses. Do you think the city is prepared?
Again, as I stated earlier, I don't think the city is quite there. I know from personal experience that this has been a very long process. I know that the city is putting money away in some of those funds, and I know that there's an effort being made to get there. And I think we will end up getting there. I think it just takes a little bit more work to know that we know for sure we're going to make it happen in time. The $1 million estimate that was used for the city's portion of that came from the 2012 ballpark estimate from the city engineers, made on a number of different assumptions. Since then, the scope of the project, as I've already stated, is probably going to be expanded. It probably will include the highway past the fairgrounds, which basically means that it's going to cost much more than $1 million. That original $1 million estimate, if you break down the city portion of it, covering the city water was $245,000, the city sewer was $187,000, the storm sewer was $90,000, and had other miscellaneous expenses, not including the streetscape amenities or the beautification stuff, in just a little over $200,000, but that was $750,000 2 years ago. Costs have continued to rise, and with the scope of the project continuing to be explored as possibly expanding, I think that there may be some challenges out there, and I think that one of the things that as mayor, the mayor sets the agenda and the tone for some of the city commission meetings, and has just as much of an obligation as those other 4 commissioners to make sure that things are on the agenda, that things are being discussed, that the accountability is in place, and that there's actual follow-up on things, and then making sure that the public has a right, or that the public knows, getting back to the transparency in government, what's going on, how much it's going to cost, where we're at, and continuing to move forward and getting that done.
Bill, would you like to react to what you've heard about, again, this complete street project? We'll give you a minute to react, please.
That project is going to be the biggest project in this community since 1984, when we built sewage lagoons and transferred sewage from going in the lake to up on the hills. And so we've been planning and looking forward to getting our ducks in a row so that when this project starts, we're ready, and we're ready to do it right. And that's the key question. And our engineers and our city staff are constantly looking to do this project correctly. The engineers have been working on it, and so have the city staff as far as getting the money put together.
Thank you very much. And our last question before we go to audience participation, and I think this one is coming first to Scott. Okay. Scott, development, especially business locations, can increase tax capacity for the city of Glenwood while reducing property taxes overall. What is one idea you actually have to attract more businesses to Glenwood?
Well, as I identified earlier, the Chamber's been working on this for quite some time. And the first thing that we did was, we identified the barriers that were there. We've been working through a different process through our CCI group to make sure that some of those barriers are addressed. More specifically, earlier this year, we did present a 2018, or I should say, we've been working on the 2018 Complete Streets project with the beautification piece of it. But we also drafted a number of city ordinances to help address some of those issues. I talked about the property maintenance standards, the sign ordinance, the lodging tax. Some of those are in the process of being implemented. The lodging tax has been adopted and will go into effect January 1st. The property maintenance standards has been adopted, but I still don't believe that it's been put into effect. And the sign ordinance is one that we're still waiting to get back on the agenda and review it. Through the Chamber, we also facilitate a group called Positively Polk County. And that group just finished their strategic planning and is in the process now of getting into their work stages. And that group is a group of individuals from all across the county, government officials, nonprofit representatives, and regular citizens that have come together to talk about a number of different issues about how we make Polk County move forward together. The priorities that group is working on is housing and education, employment and transportation, building collaborations, and public relations and marketing. So when you look at all of those types of things, I think once we get those addressed, once a street project comes in, think we're in a much better position to be able to market this community and to take a proactive approach to actually having everything available and ready to go. That's good. I'll stop.
Okay. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. Bill, development, especially business locations, can increase your tax capacity as a city. You know that very well. While reducing property taxes overall. What's one idea that you have? And I'll give you more time. I'm sorry again I cut you off at only a minute the last time, but please take 2 minutes to talk about attracting more businesses to the Glenwood community.
I have to admit it's somewhat difficult to attract viable retail downtown with the big box stores just a few miles north of here. But we have been working diligently with the Glenwood Development Corporation and our developer is Gene Winstrom, and to get manufacturing businesses and job creations into the community. Our hope is that if you have Clyde's, Wasp, they're both looking for people to work there. There's an expansion going on at Clyde's right now. The city was able to get a $200,000 grant from the state to help Clyde's along with their development. Now, when this money comes back from them paying off the city, that money will then be available to be loaned out to other businesses that want to come to town. And we have been doing this for many years. In fact, Glenwood Development Corporation started in 1958, and my father was involved in it, and I was around at that time. It dates me somewhat. And we used to have people in our home who were coming to town to bring businesses into town. And so that development corporation has been working diligently since 1958 to bring businesses into town. I get the yield signs, but I guess I'll have to yield. But that's what we try and do, is to bring them into town and create jobs.
Shannon, 1 minute to react to development, especially business locations. How would you actually work to attract businesses to the community of Glenwood?
As I said before, just beautifying the downtown area and working with people to get buildings renovated and help get small businesses into them. A couple of things that I do have to comment on, as far as I'm wondering why the Chamber of Commerce and other organizations have had to take the lead on doing some of that, as I thought that that would be something that the city itself would be very active in. I know that the HRA, yes, tries to work together too, but I really think that, you know, the Chamber has the interest of all of us business owners in town here that support it. However, I'm just wondering why the Chamber has had to be the ones to go ahead and start getting some of those things going instead.
That's a question I don't have the answer to. That does finish our scripted questions, so the candidates are going to step out briefly, and we will take questions from the audience when we return. Candidates are back, and we have kind of a tight schedule here. I'm going to try to keep it as close to 7:30 as I can. Shannon will open up with you. You'll have 2 minutes to respond. Then Scott 2 minutes to respond. Then Bill 2 minutes to respond. And if we can cut down on the rebuttal, that would be great because we can get more questions. And that way, maybe look at a 30-second rebuttal unless you've got something that you really are in love with. And you let me know, and we'll let everybody have a minute. Okay? Shannon, the first question that we have from the audience, and it's related to a couple of things, so please wait until I finish up. What do you feel is the job of the mayor? We have businesses that have growth However, many of the employees live out of the city. How do you propose to getting families to move here?
One of the jobs of the mayor, I feel, is to be a leader in the community. I think that everyone needs to know who the mayor is. You know, I have been trying to go around town, meeting people I do not know. And one of the things that I've really found is that when we have had emergency situations here in town, I have to compliment all of our city workers. And you know, many times I thought, you know, with me running for mayor, maybe I should be taking those guys coffee and stuff like that, just showing them appreciation. And I think sometimes too, the job that our city workers do for us, no one appreciates them. They're the first ones to get hit by all the complaints, and I don't know why. And I really think that the mayor needs to step up and, you know, take that pressure off of the employees of the city. You know, they really need to be a leader in that. And when there are catastrophes in town, which there have been recently, I think the mayor needs to be there all the time, making sure that everything is being taken care of. And the second part of your question was moving families into town. That is a very hard thing to get people here. One of the things that I have found is that in our town, there's not a whole lot of decent rental properties to start with. And we really have to get on those landlords, make their properties better so that people do want to move here and live here.
Okay. Scott, what do you feel is the job of the mayor? We have businesses that have growth, however, many of the employees live out of the city. How do you propose getting families to move here?
I think the primary role of the mayor is actually to be the face of the community. When it comes to the city commission meetings and different things that go on, I think it's the mayor's role to make sure that they set the tone and that meetings are run efficiently and effectively, and they get to the business at hand and continue to move forward with different things. In addition to setting the tone for the meetings, I think the mayor is one of the primary people, in addition to the city administrator or maybe some other city staff, that also has to work to build those collaborations and build relationships and create those synergies in town. When we have opportunities that we can work with the county and we can work with other entities and different things like that, I think it's important for the mayor to have an open mind, be able to run a meeting effectively so that they're able to see all sides of an issue, have everything thrown on the table, but at the same point in time keep control so that the meeting continues to flow properly. In order to move more families to town, I know that we've got a number of employers right now who are really struggling to try to fill some of those jobs. WASP has quite a few jobs that are needing to be filled. A lot of that does boil down to having some affordable rental housing. That's one of the areas that we've talked a lot about with our Positively Polk County group, and I think it's going to take a little bit of work and a little bit of effort to try to address that issue, but it's one thing that we are working on, and I think eventually we'll end up getting there.
Bill, what do you feel is the job of the mayor? We have businesses that have growth, however, many of the employees live out of the city. How do you propose getting families to move here?
Well, we would like to have a lot of families to move here. We have a thing here in Glenwood. We've got 2,500 people in Glenwood, and I don't know what the population is outside of the city. I'm talking about Long Beach and the farms and Allwood Drive and so on. So we have a lot of people who do not live in the city. I realize that. And as far as the mayor's job, I try and meet and be downtown and talk to a lot of people a lot of the time, all year long, and also to be available at City Hall. Now, we have a city administrator who is to handle the administration of the city. And once again, getting back to the city council and the mayor, we are to set policy. So whenever anybody complains to me, I take it to the city administrator and ask him to handle it. I don't handle it. That destroys any kind of cohesion that you have as far as the city staff. If you have a whole flock of bosses trying to control the city staff, both the in the office or in the, out in the street. And so I follow that particular management style. But yet I'm available to be talked to and discussed with, and I will, try and explain to anybody anything that we have going on.
Shannon, 30 seconds.
I still think it's very important for the mayor to listen to people and to make sure that he is in contact with the city workers. To me, it almost sounds like at times that the mayor's brushing off some of those responsibilities. Yes, we have hired people, but I still think that people look to the mayor to be a leader in the community, to help them pull together.
Scott, 30 seconds, please.
I think that there's a very big difference between management and leadership. And I think the mayor needs to be a leader in the community, and the management is the job of the city administrator. The city administrator manages the business of the city. They're the ones hired to do that. And I think that the mayor and the city administrator need to work side by side, hand in hand, and always be on the same page. So they need to have probably the biggest area of communication between them and the best working relationship.
Bill, 30 seconds, please.
Well, what I try and do is I know most all of the city workers, and when something is going on, I try and be there to watch the job, but I do not quiz or ask them to do something that is not then directed by their direct boss, be it the city administrator or police officer or the chief of police, because they're also city employees.
Thank you. Our second question, we'll start with Scott. Scott, are you in favor of tax-free zones to draw businesses to Glenwood?
I think there's a number of pros and cons when you look at the tax-free zones, some of the business incentives that are out there. Even if you look at tax increment financing and different things like that, there's a number of different programs that the cities can adopt, which are kind of, they're state programs. I think there's some definite benefits to exploring all of those options. I think one of the challenges we might have with Glenwood is trying to identify where those areas are in the city that you could do those types of projects. One of the things that we have had in the last few years specifically is that we have a number of investors and people who are stepping forward to take some risks and do some developments and build some different things and to start the ball rolling. So I think that that's one area that we're very grateful for to have in the community. But I do think that one of the things that the city does lack is some of those incentives. So I think that is one of the areas that certainly should be explored.
Bill, are you in favor of tax-free zones to draw businesses to Glenwood?
No, I'm not, because we need the businesses to be tax-paying businesses. But by saying that, I also have to point out that we do a lot of tax increment financing, we do a lot of abatements. So the city has obtained grants for WASP, Clydes, tax abatements, tax instrument financing for both hotels, the current condominium project, and the replacement structure of the old Culligan buildings. We have worked with the developers of the Gables and on lookout rental development units, and it has a city grant that got GDC addition behind the 48 unit high-rise up at the top of the hill. The city has been very active in the area of helping businesses come to town and get going, but not with tax-free zones. We do it with tax increment financing, we do it with abatements and other things, but not a strict tax-free zone. If you look at tax-free zones in other states and other cities, quite often the business comes, enjoys the tax-free time, and when that disappears, they disappear. And we don't want to get into that. We want to get businesses and manufacturing companies that come to town and stay here.
Thank you. Shannon, 2 minutes. Are you in favor of tax-free zones to draw businesses to Glenwood?
No, I am not. I have to agree with Bill that there are businesses that come to town just for that. However, when their time is up, they are gone. I think instead of looking at tax-free zones, what we do need to look at is where the tax exempt properties already are. You know, are these nonprofit organizations, can they utilize some of those properties already? I think that's where we need to look at instead. Give something away for free, you give a little bit, they'll keep taking more and more, and then, you know, all of a sudden they do pull out, they're gone, and then what do we do with that? We've lost tax dollars, we've lost probably a building, it's probably been beat up by the renters or the owners. It leaves a lot more for us to pay for in the end instead.
Scott, 30 seconds.
I think that we have a number of issues here that are being discussed and talked about. When you talk about the tax increment financing, that is one of the programs that's very similar to a number of other things. When you talk about tax abatement, that's almost the same as a tax-free zone, because basically at that point you're taking the time to waive those taxes on the property taxes, which is different than tax increment financing. With that one, the current level of property taxes that are being paid continues. It's just the additional portion doesn't come until the future.
Okay. Bill, 30 seconds, please.
Well, back to tax-free zones, how do I say it? Tax increment financing and tax abatements are both things that governments can give to a business to encourage them to build and move ahead. And we do a lot of those in Glenwood right now.
Shannon, 30 seconds, please.
It seems like a lot of those businesses, actually, I don't know, other than a few of them are actually not in the city of Glenwood. So I wonder how that actually works. And isn't that back to working with the county and the city together on it?
Okay, thank you.
Well, one thing to clarify, all the businesses that we give tax increment financing to from Glenwood are in the city of Glenwood.
Scott, would you like to react to that? I mean, fair is fair if you have a reaction.
No, I would agree. I mean, the city of Glenwood doesn't have any jurisdiction outside of the city of Glenwood to authorize that, so.
Shannon, anything that you'd like to react to?
No, that's fine.
Okay. An audience member has a very simple